Belts. What are the common belt types, profiles, and how to determine the right belt for you? Hi everyone, I'm Rachel, and here in this video, I'll tell you all you need to know about different types of belts and profiles, how to measure them correctly, and which type to choose when. We see belts everywhere in the agricultural industry, in harvesters, balers, loaders, reapers, and so on. They connect two or more pulleys, linking a power source to an application. In short, belts play a crucial part in power transmission. To find the type of belt you need, you'll need to ask yourself what environment will the belt be operating in, and if you're replacing an old belt, you'll need to find out what kind of belt you have and how long it is. I'm curious to know as well, what are you planning to use your belt for? Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on all of our other videos. Belts come in many different shapes and sizes. Let's take a look at a few. First up, flat belts. This type of belt is used when the distance between two pulleys is quite large. We see flat belts a lot in agricultural applications. Then there's fan belts, often found in the engine of agricultural or industrial vehicles. They're usually used to transfer power from one place to another. Next, we've got timing belts. These are usually used with timing pulleys to synchronize the rotation of the crankshaft and camshafts in an engine. They're cogged, which I'll talk more about later. V-belts are by far the most common, since they're widely used in many different applications. They are easy to install, don't require any lubrication, and V-belts offer a slip-resistant and high-speed power solution. Classical V-belts come in 5 profile sizes: A, B, C, D, and E, and the top width and depth dimensions are to an industry standard. The profile size needs to match the pulley type. So, for example, the A profile is paired with an SPA type pulley. The B profile is paired with the SPB pulley, and so on. It's important to find an exact match, as belt profiles and sizes are rated for different loads. So let's say you're replacing an old belt with a newer one. How do you find out what type of belt you're going to need? Let me show you. The easiest way is to check the markings on the belt. This will tell you the exact profile type. However, when a belt gets old and worn, these markings can fade or disappear entirely. If that's the case, how do you determine the profile size? Well, you measure the top width and depth using either a digital caliper or an old-fashioned tape measure. First, determine the top width, then the depth, and voila! You have all the info you need to determine the belt profile type. Remember when I told you we would get into cogged belts later? Well, the time has come. See how there's teeth inside the belt? That's a cogged belt, as compared to a standard one. Cogged belts normally get an X added to the part number: AX, BX, CX, and so on. Cogged belts offer greater flexibility and make it possible to use smaller pulleys, meaning applications can be more compact in their design. Additionally, cogged belts reduce heat buildup, which is crucial for certain applications in heat-sensitive environments. So, now you know more about the profile size and the difference between cogged and standard belts. Next up, how do we measure V-belt lengths? Classical V-belts are designated by their inside circumference, which is marked on the belt alongside the profile type: A, B, C, and so on. Different belt manufacturers have different marks when it comes to length designation, but traditionally, for classic V-belts, you should see the following: the profile size, A, B, C, D, E, the inside circumference length, which is often marked LI on the belt, and the datum length, also known as pitch length, which is often marked with either LD or LW. This is the length of the belt at the strength chord level. But, like I said earlier, when a belt gets old and worn, these markings can fade or disappear. If that's the case, the only option you have is to measure the belt yourself. And if you do, it's important to note that belts do stretch over time, so if your belt is quite old, you need to factor this in. So how do you measure a V-belt length? There are a few different ways you can do this. The first way is to use a V-belt length gauge, like cramp part number VB900,000, which makes it very easy to determine the correct size. But if you don't have this kind of equipment, there are other ways of getting a measurement. The alternative is to first measure the outside circumference and then do the math and get the inside circumference to be able to determine the replacement belt you need. There are 3 ways to do this. Number 1, use a soft tape measure and wrap it around the outside circumference of the belt and take the measurement. Number 2, use a piece of string and wrap it around the outside of the belt. Mark the string when it gets back to the starting point again. Then measure the length of the string with a tape measure. Number 3, clearly mark the belt and then roll the outside of the belt, starting at the marked point along a stiff tape measure until you reach your mark again. This will give you a rough idea of your measurement. But what I just showed you were ways to measure the outside circumference. So, how do we calculate the inside circumference from the outside? Well, we have a general calculation rule that you can follow. If you're dealing with an A profile, take the outside circumference and subtract 2 inches. This number is the inside circumference, its designated size. For the B profile, you subtract 3 inches, C profile 4 inches, D profile 5 inches, and E profile subtract 6 inches. Take, for example, an A45 type belt. It's an A profile with a 13mm top width and an 8mm depth. The outside circumference I found in the previous steps is 47 inches. When we deduct 2 inches as per the general calculation rule, we'll find that the inside circumference is 45 inches or 1,143 millimeters. Lastly, I want to highlight the importance of having matched sets. When you're dealing with 2 V-belts with the same size designation from different manufacturers, actually, even when they're from the same manufacturer, in practice you might find some variation in length. If you're using single belts on your machine or application, then this should not be an issue. However, if you're running multiple V-belts together on the same drive, then having belts of the same length is very important. If you don't have belts of the same length, efficiency will decrease dramatically. So, I highly recommend that if you are using multiple belts together on the same drive, you make sure you have a matched set. In case you would like to read more about determining the length of V-belts, this article might be a good one to read. Let me summarise what I've just explained once more. We talked about flat belts, fan belts, timing belts, and, most importantly, V-belts. They come in 5 different profile sizes, A through E, and can be either cogged or standard. To find the right belt, the easiest way is to check the markings on the belt. If you can't read those, you measure the top width and the depth to determine the profile type. To find the V-belt inner circumference, you first need to measure the outer circumference using one of 3 techniques, with a soft tape measure, a piece of string, or by rolling the belt next to a stiff tape measure. Finally, you subtract a few inches depending on the belt type, like I explained before. All right, everyone, there you have it. Belts, profiles, and how to find the one that's right for you. There are more videos on our channel that you might enjoy, so make sure you click that like and subscribe button to stay up to date. Thanks for watching. See you next time.